Hi, my name is Mike German. I'm a fellow with the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU Law School, and today I'm with Ben Friedman, who is a research fellow at the Cato Institute, where he studies defense and homeland security policy. You've written that Americans want more homeland security than they need. And you can imagine politicians in a democracy want to give people what they want. So why is it a problem that we give Americans more security than we need?
Well, I think the demand for homeland security is generated largely by events and politics that don't actually reflect the risk of terrorism to the United States, which is what homeland security is supposed to be about preventing. So there's a variety of reasons that human psychology clings to risks that are rare but dramatic, like the September 11th attacks, and rates their impact as more deadly than they probably are, according to objective analysis. There's other risks that are the same way. Kidnapping by strangers, shark attacks, these sorts of things that very rarely happen but make a big impression on people. And there's a whole variety of research in human psychology that shows how people sort of overrate these dangers. And also when people sort of become activated and aware of a danger, as they did with regard to terrorism, particularly after September 11th, they're insensitive to the idea that there's a certain amount of tolerable risk, because going after that creates more problems than it's worth. So, if people are told there's arsenic in drinking water, as there is, even in the cleanest drinking water, they want the amount of arsenic in drinking water to be zero. But if you study it sort of rigorously, you understand that, well, getting it down to zero would create such costs that it wouldn't be worth it, because the risks at very, very low trace amounts aren't that great. And you can sort of think of terrorism the same way. Our psychology, once we think about it, says, well, we want zero risk of terrorism. But when we're spending billions of dollars a year and doing other things to our laws and civil liberties even that have, I think, tremendous costs, it's maybe not worth it. And then, of course, our politics, I think, are another source of overrating the risk. I mean, we have all these sort of political entrepreneurs who have in Congress and in other places, people who want something from the government who have sort of an incentive to hype the terrorism risk. So the perception that people get isn't really the reality. So it's an example of sort of where democratic debate kind of fails.
And you of course, we're vulnerable to terrorist attacks in an open society, but you've written that vulnerability and risk are two different things.
Yeah, right. Vulnerability is sort of possibility. All sorts of possibly bad things could happen every day when you wake up and get out of bed. You could be run over by a bus or killed by a meteor or lightning. But we don't worry too much about these things because their possibility is so remote. Their probability is so remote. So risk is really how likely it is times the consequence. And when we do public policy, ideally, you want to worry about risks, not just possible scenarios, because we can always dream up possible scenarios to justify any sort of law or spending measure.